Witherbloom Witchcraft is pretty good right out of the box, but I believe that there are 10 cards that we can swap out for under $20 to make this deck more competitive. Let's take a look at Witherbloom Witchcraft and the 10 cards that I would upgrade for it, and the video starts right now. Special thanks to our Patreon supporters who power our channel. Check out our Patreon for monthly giveaways, exclusive content, and even a starring role in our fan fight series. Link in the description below. Hello and welcome to the day. Thank you for spending your time with us. Welcome back to another episode of Jake and Joel or Magic. I'm Joel. We're going to talk about Witherbloom Witchcraft and the 10 cards that I would upgrade for this deck. But before we do, if you would go down there, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out. And if you stick around to the end of the video, we're going to talk about 3 cards that I think should stay on your radar. Let's take a look at this deck. Witherbloom Witchcraft is led by Willowdusk, Essence Seer, a green, a black, and one other for a 3/3 Dryad Druid. Pay 1 to tap it, choose another target creature, put a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the amount of life you gained this turn or the amount of life you lost this turn, whichever is greater. Activate only as a sorcery. So we've got a life gain strategy. We've got perhaps a life loss strategy. We know we want to be putting counters on big creatures and attacking through based on how much life we lose or gain in any given turn. For the most part, every card in here that we upgrade is going to be taking a card out of the deck that's got some synergy but not quite enough, and trying to put more synergy into the deck to completely lean into Willowdusk's ability. That's what we're going to do with this video, is upgrade based on Willowdusk, Essence Seer. And I want to start with Gluttonous Troll. A green, a black, and 2 other for a 3/3 trampling troll. When Gluttonous Troll enters the battlefield, you create a number of food tokens equal to the number of opponents you have. And you can pay 2, sacrifice another non-land permanent to give Gluttonous Troll +2/+2 until end of turn. This is a fine card, and it could be a good target for +1/+1 counters to go on, and you've got food tokens created as a result of it entering the battlefield, which is going to give you the ability to gain life. But I just want a little more synergy going forward, and so I want to upgrade Gluttonous Troll to Trading Post. 4 mana for an artifact. You can pay 1 and tap it to discard a card and gain 4 life. You can pay 1 and tap it and pay 1 life to create a 0/1 white goat creature token. You can pay 1, tap it, sack a creature, return target artifact from your graveyard to your hand, or you can pay 1, tap it, sack an artifact, and draw a card. With the ability to gain an ongoing 4 life, just that first ability with Trading Post. Pay 1, tap it, discard a card, gain 4 life. That's 4 counters with Willowdusk. That's already more than a food token, and Trading Post is going to allow you to do this over and over again because it's not going to run out. This is a 50-cent card that also gets you some other utility, some other versatility, and that's never a bad thing. For just 50 cents, I think Trading Post is worth putting in here for a reoccurring way to gain 4 life. The next card I want to upgrade is Taste of Death. 2 black, 4 other for a sorcery. Each player sacks 3 creatures. You create 3 food tokens. Again, this is a pretty good removal spell. It does give your opponents a choice, which I don't really like, as to which 3 creatures are going to die. And if you're playing against a token deck, this card is just like womp womp. You don't even want to play it. You do get the 3 food tokens, which again, you can gain 3 life by paying 2, tapping it, sacking it. But I just want more ongoing. I want either bodies on the battlefield to put +1/+1 counters on, or a reoccurring way to lose life or gain life. And so along those lines, I want to run Dreadhorde Invasion. A black and 1 other for an enchantment that says at the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life and amass 1, which is putting a +1/+1 counter on an army you control or creating an army. And whenever a zombie token you control with power 6 or greater attacks, it gains lifelink. So if this creature isn't responded to with power 6, it's going to gain lifelink and gain a 6 life in 1 big hit. Past that, it's going to be draining you for a guaranteed 1 every single turn. So we're going to be able to, at the very least, put 1 +1/+1 counter on this zombie, grow it faster than it would naturally grow, and then hopefully start swinging through with a 6/6 lifelinker that's allowing us to dump 6 counters on some creature, maybe even the zombie itself. Dreadhorde Invasion is 50 cents and a really good upgrade for this deck. The next card is AncientCraving, a black and 3 other for a sorcery that simply says you draw 3 cards and lose 3 life. I do like this spell. This is a spell that I run in various EDH decks, but I think for Willowdusk in particular, we can make a very cool upgrade, and that is upgrading it to Treacherous Blessing. A black and 2 other for an enchantment that says when it enters the battlefield, draw 3 cards. Whenever you cast a spell, you lose 1 life, and when it becomes the target of a spell or ability, sacrifice it. So what's going to happen is you're going to pay 1 less mana to draw the same amount of cards and you're going to have the ability to, hopefully under your control, lose a certain amount of life every turn that'll help you with Willowdusk's ability. This is not normally a card I recommend for EDH, but for Willowdusk, I really think it works, and I'm excited to try this card out in the deck. Suffer the Past is a good card, but one I still want to take out and replace. A black and X for an instant speed spell. Exile X target cards from target player's graveyard. For each card exiled this way, that player loses a life and you gain a life. Early on, you don't really want this card. Late, it could be a good draw, but they might have already done their thing, so you really need to hit it at a critical point against a graveyard deck. And for that, I would rather just have a spell that I'm excited to play, not like holding back in reserve, at least when it comes to Suffer the Past. And so I want to put in Palace Siege. 5 mana for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you choose Khans or Dragons. If you choose Khans at the beginning of your upkeep, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand, so it's good late. And Dragons, at the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life, so it's really good early too. You could be draining your opponent slowly over the course of the entire game with this enchantment, especially if with your green mana you're able to ramp it out quickly. Palace Siege is $1.50, and I would encourage you not to underestimate the power of, at the beginning of each of your upkeeps, all of your opponents being drained for 2. I think that can really add up. Pulse of Marasa is one of these Precon cards that I always end up taking out. 1 green, 2 other, instant speed. Return target creature or land from a graveyard to its owner's hand and you gain 6 life. This is nice. 3 mana, 6 life, pay 1 more. Tap Willowdusk, add 6 counters to something. Also, you're getting a creature or a land card back. I can understand an argument for this card, but for the same amount of mana, we can play Retreat to Kaizan, and we can be doing exactly what our deck wants to be doing. Putting +1/+1 counters on creatures or gaining or losing life. Retreat to Kaizan is 1 green, 2 other for an enchantment with landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you choose 1. Put a +1/+1 counter on a creature, or you gain 2 life. I like being able to count on an extra effect every time I'm playing lands, which I'm going to be doing anyway. And for only 50 cents, Retreat to Kazandu's really got a good place in a budget upgrade for this deck. Druidic Satchel came in the deck. 3 mana for an artifact, pay 2, tap it, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, create a 1/1 creature. If it's a land card, put that card onto the battlefield under your control. And if it's a non-creature, non-land, you gain 2 life. I kind of like this card. It's a really versatile card. I like that it can kind of ramp you. I like that it can put bodies onto the battlefield. I like that it can happen at instant speed. You don't have to do this as a sorcery, so it's pretty decent, but that I want to be able to count on something more. I want a better effect, and so let's go with Marauding Blight Priest. Whenever you gain life, each opponent loses 1 life on a 3/2 Vampire Cleric for 3 mana. This is the sort of synergy that we want in this deck. If we're going to be gaining life, losing life, we want to be leaning into that. Marauding Blight Priest is only 50 cents and a really good pickup for this deck. Really budget, really easy to get this card. It's going to give you an Exquisite Blood, Sanguine Bond kind of interaction that could be a win condition in a deck like this. Elixir of Immortality is a 1 mana artifact. You pay 2, tap it, gain 5 life, shuffle Elixir of Immortality and your graveyard into their owner's library. So we get to reshuffle our graveyard into our library, so it's some longevity, but it's not something you want to see early. Like maybe it's a good 2 mana, tap it, sack it, you gain 5 life. You know, your Willowdusk is putting 5 counters 1 time. So I'd rather take Elixir of Immortality and turn it into Bow of Nylia. We're going to have creatures with this deck. That's what this deck wants to do, is put +1/+1 counters on creatures. So those having Death Touch, if they're attacking, is pretty excellent. A green, and 1 other for a legendary enchantment artifact. Attacking creatures you control have Death Touch. And then we've got abilities that are perfectly synergistic. 2 mana, tap it, choose 1. Put a +1/+1 counter on a creature, or it deals 2 damage to target creature with flying, or you gain 3 life, or put up to 4 target cards from your graveyard on the bottom of your library in any order. 3 mana for 3 counters, repeated, plus you're gaining the life. I love this card. And that attacking creatures you control have Death Touch. That just can't be understated. This at $5 is the most expensive card on the upgrade list, but I would hie thee to TCG Player and pick up a copy of Bow of Nylia. It fits perfectly into this deck. Paradise Plume is a pretty cool artifact for this deck, but at 4 mana, just not a huge fan. 4 mana for an artifact. When it comes into play, you choose a color. Whenever a player plays a spell of the chosen color, you may gain 1 life, and you can tap it to add a color of the chosen color to your mana pool. So you have the ability to control this to a certain amount, just like the cards earlier that I was talking about. I would rather, however, run Netherborne Altar. 2 mana for an artifact, tap it, put a soul counter on Netherborne Altar, put your commander into your hand from the command zone, then you lose 3 life for each soul counter on Netherborne Altar. The ability to put your commander from your command zone directly into your hand is going to keep you from having to pay tax, and you're shifting that tax into life lost. I really like Netherborne Altar in this deck, and I think it's got the potential to pop off. 50 cents for this upgrade, and I think you're going to like this card in there. Let me know how it works for you. I'll do the same. Next up, I want to look at Sun Droplet 2 for an artifact. Whenever you're dealt damage, put that many charge counters on it. And at the beginning of each upkeep, you can remove a charge counter from Sun Droplet, and if you do, gain 1 life. Just that 1, it's just not quite enough. I think the difference between 1 and 2 for this deck is huge. And so I really want to take out Sun Droplet, and I want to put Bantus Monument in here. We're going to be playing creatures, and this rewards us for doing that. 3 mana for a legendary artifact. Black creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. And whenever you cast a creature spell, each opponent loses a life and you gain a life. So hopefully we will be playing multiple creatures when we've got Bantu out. We have this repeated, so we're guaranteed it. We don't even have to take damage to start putting counters on it or something to gain the life. Bantus Monument I really like in here. $4 strangely for this uncommon artifact, but I really do think it has a home in here, and hopefully we're casting a lot of spells and gaining a lot of life. The last card here is Witherbloom Campus. Enters the battlefield tapped, taps for black or green, and you pay 4, tap it, scry 1. I've taken this card out of every Precon upgrade. I just don't like it, and I think there's a way better land that we can run in here. $3.50 for Castle Lochthwain. It enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a swamp. It taps for a swamp mana, and you can pay black 1, tap it to draw a card, then lose life equal to the number of cards in your hand, which we know is something we want to be doing in this deck. We will get to lose life and draw cards at the same time, which is always a good thing on a land, so we're going to get repeated effect off of it. $3.50, it's definitely an upgrade over Witherbloom Campus. Those are the 10 cards that I would swap out. I want to look at 3 more to keep on your radar that are a little above the budget that we set for this video. The first of which is Whip of Arabos. Black 2 for a legendary enchantment artifact. Creatures you control have lifelink, so it's kind of like Bow of Nylia, but lifelink instead of Death Touch. And black 2 tap, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste, exile it at the beginning of the next end step. If it would leave the battlefield, exile it instead of putting it anywhere else, and you can only do this as a sorcery. Whip of Arabos is awesome in this deck. All of your creatures have lifelink. You could maybe gain a ton of life in one turn with a big attack, plus the ability to recur your creatures, so you've got longevity built into this card. This is everything I like about an EDH card. It's $6, but I think this should be one of the first expensive cards that you go out to pick up. The next of which is Exquisite Blood. We have got Sanguine Bond in the deck, so for a black and 4 for an enchantment, whenever an opponent loses life, you gain that much life. The sister enchantment to this says whenever you gain life, opponents lose that much life, so you can cause an infinite loop and win con with just these 2 cards, but even individually they are fantastic. However, Exquisite Blood is $35, so this is quite an expensive enchantment that is desperately in need of a reprint right now. Keep it on your radar, though. Could give you a nice little 2-card win condition in the deck. And the last card I want to look at is Great Hinge. This card has gotten up to $50 since it was printed. A green, and 7 for a legendary artifact. The spell costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. You tap it to add 2 green and gain 2 life, which is the part I really like. And then also, whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under control, put a +1/+1 counter on it and draw a card. You've got synergy, you've got card draw, you've got counters, you've got mana addition. This card has it all. It belongs in this deck. It's way too expensive right now. See if you can find yourself a cheap copy of it. It definitely wants to go in the Willowdusk deck. Those are the upgrades. Let's close the book. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know how you're upgrading Willowdusk. This is probably the deck of the precons that I am the lowest on, but I'm really excited to get my hands on all 5 of these decks so that I can start playing them and letting you know what I think. Let me know down below what cards you would put into Witherbloom. What's it called? Witherbloom Witchcraft. Other than that, hit that like button if you like the video, hit that dislike button if you don't, and I'll catch you later.